Welcome to Employment Law class. Today we look at Section 2 of Unit 3 on Formation of Contract of Employment. Session objective. By the end of this session, you should be able to state the particulars needed for formation of contracts of employment, identify the types of contracts of employment, state the duties and rights of the employer and worker under the labor law. Section 12 of the Labor Act 2003 at 651 provide the following. So we are going to deal with the provisions of Act 651. Section 1 of the said Act provides that the employment of a worker by an employer for a period of 6 months or more, or for a number of working days equivalent to 6 months or within a year, shall be secured by a written contract of employment. What this provision, so we are done with Section 12, subsection 1. This provision saying that, look, if you are an employer and you want to employ someone as a worker, and the work is going to take 6 months or more, or it is going to be done within 1 year, then that contract should necessarily be in writing. That contract should necessarily be in writing. It can be oral. It can be oral. It should necessarily be in writing. It can be oral. Oral is cancelled. Now, to state that a contract of employment shall express in a clear terms the rights and obligations of the parties. So, in that contract, the rights and obligations of the parties should be stated. What are the rights and obligations of the parties? And we will learn the rights and obligations of the parties very soon. Now, the first schedule of the Labor Act 2003 at 651 set out the terms that should be contained in the written agreement as indicated in Section 12, subsection 1. The date of first appointment, the title of the job and the grade, the rate, the method and interval of payment. Is it every 2 weeks, 1 month, whatever? Hours of work. Is the person going to work 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day? In fact, you have to state periods of holidays and details of the holidays. Holidays are good for people to rest. You have to indicate all of them. Conditions relating to incapacity to work due to sickness or injury, and details of sick pay. Sick pay is necessary. The details of social security or pension scheme. The law requires that every employer should contribute certain percentage to the employer in terms of social security. An amount of notice to terminate employment given by employer or the worker. So in terms of termination, what is the period that should be given? The disciplinary rule applicable in case the employee go contrary to the rules. What are the disciplinary rules that govern that misconduct? Procedures of dealing with grievances, how grievances will be dealt with, and overtime. Overtime is key because if the person exceeds the required number of work, or if the employer requires that the employee should go beyond the normal working hours, then it will trigger overtime payment. Types of employment contracts under Act 5 and under Act 651. So Section 16 of the said Act provide the various types of contract. Said contract is from 1 month to contract from month to month. So here, contract from month to month. That's where remuneration is paid monthly. This is the most common type of employment in Ghana. So if the contract is from one month to another month, then it means that the pay should be, the person is paid monthly. Contract from week to week, the remuneration is paid weekly. You go and perform work a week and you are paid. Contract determinable at will, where the remuneration is neither paid weekly or neither is paid weekly nor monthly. So the one determinable at will, the amount is not paid monthly, it's also not paid weekly. It could be daily basis. Once it doesn't fall within these two categories, it's a contract at determinable at will. So these are the three types of contract, from month to month, weekly to weekly, and determinable at will. We now want to discuss the rights of employer. Now, if you look at the provisions of Act 651, specifically Section 8, deals with rights. So, Section 8 of Act 651 deals with the rights of employer. So it said that the employer has a right to employ a worker, discipline the employee when the person breaches the rules in the organization, transfer the employee, promote the employee, terminate the employment of the worker. So the employer has a right to employ, the same person has a right to terminate. He can discipline you if you misbehave. He can transfer you or promote you if you have done a good job. The same employer has a right to formulate policies. What are the policies that is going to put in place to ensure that the organization is going concern? Execute plans and program to set targets. So it is the employer who will set targets and ensure that its execution is successful. He may also modify or extend or cease operation. If an employer, if you think that you are incurring more losses, you can cease to operate. You can either modify your business or extend your operations. Now, you also have the right to determine what type of products you want to sell or make. Do you want to produce sobolo? Do you want to produce soap? Do you want to offer services? In fact, the employer has the right to determine what type of product to sell or make. Now, when you move to Section 9 of the said Act, that's Act 651, which is the Labor Act, it provides that the employer has the following duty. You have to provide work, appropriate raw materials, machinery, equipment, and tools. What basically this means is that the resources needed for the work to be done, it should be provided by the employer. The employer must pay the agreed remuneration at the time and place agreed on in the contract of employment or collective bargaining agreement or by law or agreed between the employer and the worker. Remuneration is necessary. If your employee works or the worker works and you don't pay, the person will not feel comfortable and he will not always be happy at the workplace. So you have the duty to pay the worker at the time you stated in the contract of employment, the place. If you took the person's commercial bank account, you pay into that account. If you say at the end of the month that you pay, at the end of the month you can pay on before or on that particular day. make payment beyond the stated date. It is a very bad habit if you are an employer. Take reasonable steps to ensure that the worker is free from any risk of personal injury or damage to his or her health during or in the course of worker's employment or while lawfully on the employment premises. So anything that will cause injury to the person or cause damage to the person's health, you have to make sure that those things have been eliminated. The duties continues to develop human resource by way of training and retaining of the workers. As an employer, you have the duty to train your workers. You have the duty to train your workers. And once you train them, there is possibility that they will be retained. You train and retain. You don't dismiss them anyhow. You also have to provide and ensure that the operations of an adequate discipline of workers. So there should be a discipline. Provide and ensure the operations of an adequate for discipline of the workers. So when they misbehave, you have the duty to discipline them. Furnish the worker with a copy of the worker's contract of employment. So this is a first duty that every employer must do. The contract of employment. Give copy to the employee to know, or the worker to know what is expected of him, the payment schedule, the work that he's going to do, and everything contained therein. As an employer, you have to keep open the channel of communication. Communication is necessary, and protect the interests of employment. So you open proper channel of communication, you take feedback, and you respond. Protect the interests of the workers. Very key. As an employer, don't think about only your work or the profit that you are going to get. Think about the interests of your workers. Is there any policy for them to progress? Is there any scholarship package for them or their children? Is there any medical facility for their family and for themselves? In fact, think about the interests of the workers. In that regard, they will give out their best. Now, section 10. So let's look at the duties of the worker. The duties of worker is under section 11, while the right of worker is under section 10. Now, duties of a worker. A worker must work carefully in the lawfully chosen occupation. So, if you choose to work as an accountant, you have to work carefully and diligently in your profession or your occupation. You have to report to work regularly and punctually. You have some workers, they don't go to work early. They go to work today, the next they don't go. They will be given funny excuses. As a worker, you have to go to work regularly and punctually. Enhance productivity. Put your best to ensure that the productivity of the company or the business in which you are working with will increase. Enhance due care in the execution of assigned work and obey lawful instructions regarding the organization. The key word here is lawful. It means that if your employer gives you instruction to act unlawfully, you can base on section 11 paragraph E to decline. And if the employer dismisses you, you can bring action against him for unlawful dismissal. The right of a worker. The right of a worker is captured under section 10. Section 10. Section 10 of Act 651, that's the Labor Act, provide that the worker has the right to work under satisfactory, safe, and The rights of a worker include the right to work under satisfactory, safe, and here should be healthy, not unhealthy. Work under satisfactory, safe, and healthy conditions. And this is supported by Article 24 of the 1992 Constitution. Similar provision is provided there. Also, to receive equal pay for equal work done without discrimination. This provision too could find at Article 24 of the 1992 Constitution. So if you do equal work, the same pay that you should receive, those who are doing the same work should receive equal pay, if provided that is the pay the company has allotted to that particular work. They have to have rest or leisure time or reasonable limitation of working hours and period of holidays with pay. And this is also captured in similar provision is also captured in Article 24. As a worker, you have the right to form or join a trade union of your choice. You have the right to be trained and retained for the development of your skills and receive relevant information for your own work. By way of summary, this session we try to explain the particulars needed for the formation of contracts of employment, and we explain further the types of contracts of employment, and lastly, the duties and rights of an employer and worker under the Labor Act. Thank you and have a nice day.